In today's video, I'm gonna be telling for scary true stories told in the snow, so let's just get right into it. The first story is called A Stranger in the Snow. This happened to a girl I went to high school with. She was telling me how she was coming home from school one day, and this was back when she lived with her parents. And while she was walking home, it was snowing heavily and she could not see out of her front door. It was like a blizzard. All of a sudden, she heard someone knocking on the door and she opened it to no one being there. She thought maybe it was her dog because she has a big dog and he sometimes walks himself in the door. But when she looked outside, there was no one there. No one had been there. There were no footprints in the snow. She closed the door and went inside and continued on with her day. The next day, she was telling me this. She checked all of her security cameras, and sure enough, at the time that she had heard a knock, there was a man standing on her security camera on her front porch. And again, there were no footprints leading up to her door or away from it. She never saw him again. She didn't know who it was. And to this day, no one knows who that man was. The next story is called Bigfoot. My friend and I were backpacking through the Beartooth Wilderness in the early 2000s with two other friends of ours. We decided to take a more difficult trail that would lead us over a mountain pass and then down into the next valley where our car was parked. It was a very cold day and we only had one small space heater to keep us warm in our tent at night. After struggling up the mountain in knee-deep snow, we finally made it to the pass and could see the valley below us. The view was absolutely breathtaking. As we started making our way down the mountain, the sun came out and the snow began to melt under our boots. We could hear water running under the snow, and occasionally we'd kick our feet up and spray water into the air. We rounded a bend and found a small cave in the side of the mountain. We stopped to rest a minute, and my friend decided to walk into the cave a ways. The entrance was big enough for a person, but quickly narrowed down to about 3 feet wide and 4 feet tall. At its narrowest point, the ceiling was also slanted, so he had to duck to make it through. The walls were wet and muddy where the melting snow had dripped down. He turned around and said something to us that made us laugh. He couldn't remember exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of, "Holy crap, guys, you gotta come see this." He turned off and disappeared from view. When he turned the corner into the narrow passage, we assumed he was joking and wanted to scare us. We waited about 30 seconds and started to call his name. We were laughing hysterically and having a great time, calling him names and pretending he was some kind of monster. After about a minute and a half, he did not answer. He didn't say anything back to us. We walked up to the entrance of the cave and hollered in there, still laughing. He did not answer. We were now starting to get a little scared. We peeked our heads in and yelled for him, and we started to panic. We ran to the entrance of the cave. When we got closer, we realized that the 3 feet of snow that had been on the ground when we arrived was now only 2 feet. The snow had melted where he had walked through. It had melted where he had stood. We do not know what happened to him. That entire night we sat in our tent scared to death, thinking that whatever had taken him would come for us next. The next morning, we unzipped the tent to a beautiful day. The sun was shining, birds were tweeting, and there was not a cloud in the sky. We no-peed out of there. We left our things in the tent, and we have never gone back to that cave. My friend nor I will ever forget that day, and we still wonder to this day what happened to our friend. The third story is called Frozen Lake. I was camping with my boyfriend at a state park. We had the entire campground to ourselves, which was nice. While we were setting up camp, we noticed there were a lot of frozen lakes around. They were covered in ice, and it did not look like anyone had been there in a while. My boyfriend suggested we go explore them. It was late afternoon by this time, so we figured we'd be back before dark. We started with the closest lake. It was probably about 2 miles in. We walked on the ice, and it was pretty thick. We didn't break through once. At one point, the ice cracked and we ran across it so that it wouldn't break. We were fine, though. We just laughed and kept walking. It was getting late, so we turned around and headed back. About halfway back, the ice started cracking again, and I could see a small opening. The ice was broken. The water was dark, deep, and moving. It seemed to be sucking air. It was like something was underneath. I got scared. I started running. My boyfriend asked me why I was running, but I didn't answer. I knew if I broke the ice, the water would be freezing, and I wouldn't be able to get myself up, right? I'm not sure if he understood how serious I was, but he started running too. When we got back to shore, we got off the lake as fast as we could. We got back to camp, made a fire, poured some wine, and watched it get dark. I didn't want to talk about what we saw. I was too scared. I kept replaying it over in my head. Every time I closed my eyes, I could see the darkness of the water and I could feel the wind from the movement of it. I couldn't sleep that night. I sat by the fire, drinking hot chocolate. Now, to this day, I don't understand what that was, but I know it didn't want us there. The last story is called Terror in the Blizzard. My brother and I grew up exploring the woods near our house. One particularly snowy day, we decided to go check out a logging road that we'd never traveled. The road wasn't too hard to find, but the further we drove down it, the more overgrown it became. Eventually, the road became nothing but packed snow and trees. On both sides of us, my brother decided to turn around, but I wanted to push it a little further. And so I told him to keep going. The road eventually ended at a locked gate. And as my brother turned the car around, I rolled down my window to take a picture of the snow. Suddenly, the wind picked up and it started snowing heavily. I quickly rolled my window back up as I struggled to see through the windshield. My brother began to panic and we started to drive as fast as we could through the trees. The snow was coming down so hard now that it was almost impossible to see. We could barely make out the road in front of us. Suddenly, my brother slammed on the brakes and turned the wheel hard. We skidded off the road and into a snowbank. My door was jammed, so I had to climb through the back window to get out. Shaking and scared, I started to walk away from the car, but my brother grabbed my arm and pulled me back. He said that we should stay in the car until the storm passes, and so we did. After a few hours, the storm finally began to slow down. As I looked out into the trees, I noticed something terrifying. We weren't alone. There were tire tracks all around our car. Whoever or whatever had made them had been circling us. My brother and I peed out of there, and we haven't been back since. So those are for scary true stories told in the snow. If you liked this video, please leave a like. And if you want to hear more stories like these, then definitely stay tuned. Thanks for watching.